So Donald Trump says that Americans are not working enough, that we have too many holidays, and that that's what's bad for the economy. It's not the chaos and cruelty of this regime. It's not tax cuts for billionaires. It's not adding trillions to our national debt. It's not the nonsensical tariff policies that he slaps on and pulls off and slaps on and pulls off that are wrecking the economy. No, 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 no. It's that the working class have too many holidays. He said on his failing social media, about to be a penny stock platform, too many non-working holidays in America. It is costing our country billions of dollars to keep all these businesses closed. Now, understand that he said that on Juneteenth. You know, a federal holiday commemorating the end of slavery. Trump also barfed up on Truth Social, the workers don't want it either, meaning federal holidays. Soon we'll end up having a holiday for every once working day of the year. It must change if we are going to make America great again, all caps. So let's look at this claim from a couple of different angles. Now, CNN was right to point out that American consumers actually spend more money on federal holidays than on other days. So it's actually a boost to the economy. Now, I know a significant portion of my subscribers on YouTube especially are from Europe and Australia. So you might be asking, like, how can people spend more money on a federal holiday? Wouldn't that require businesses to be open? That's because here in the United States, the Fair Labor Standards Act, and I'm reading from the U.S. Department of Labor's website, by the way, does not require payment for time not worked, such as vacations, sick leave, or federal or other holidays. These benefits are matters of agreement between an employer and an employee. Additionally, the Fair Labor Standards Act does not require a private or publicly traded business to be closed on a federal holiday. It's federal agencies that are closed on federal holidays. It's also good to note that state and local agencies are not required to be closed for federal holidays. That goes for schools as well. For example, here in the Portland metro area, we don't take Columbus Day as a holiday, even though it's a federal holiday. So do Americans take too many days off work? Do we have too many holidays? We all know that Trump and the oligarchs who are running this regime don't view us as human beings. They view us as cogs in the machine. They want to squeeze us for everything that we have. They want to run us into the ground. They would love nothing more than to exploit us for every possible ounce of our energy, our intellect, our expertise, and all of our life hours. Now, I understand that Trump and Elon Musk have hoodwinked tens of millions of working class people in this country into believing that billionaires care about average working class people. They have fooled a whole lot of people into thinking that they are populists and that they care about labor practices and protections and want to increase the quality of life for those of us in the working class. That's could not be further from the truth. But a lot of people were sold a bill of goods and they have believed it. And I think some folks are starting to wake up to the realization that Trump has hoodwinked them. But a lot of people still are just waiting for him to come through for them, right? A lot of people are still holding on to that belief, that sunk cost fallacy. I'll just wait a little longer. I'll just hold on a little longer. And then he's going to do the things that he promised. Ignoring the fact that all the while he's dismantling American democracy, he's slashing programs that benefit the working class, he is doing everything he possibly can to wreck this country in order to make billionaires incredibly rich and make the rest of us essentially serfs in a feudal system where we are beholden to the billionaires and to his fascist regime. Now, according to the Fair Labor Standards Act, there are requirements for employers to pay overtime if you work more than 40 hours a week. So just want to remind folks here that we got a 40-hour work week thanks to labor organizing, and the Trump regime and Republicans in state legislatures across this country are doing everything that they can to weaken the power of labor unions, to weaken worker protections, worker safety codes, and also make it easier for corporations to exploit workers, including when it comes to overtime pay. So according to the U.S. Department of Labor, workers who earn under a certain threshold are eligible for overtime pay if they work more than 40 hours a week. The problem is that salary threshold has not been increased in a way that keeps up with inflation. And that has meant that over time, more and more people are stripped of the opportunity to get overtime pay, and it's easier for their employers to exploit them. When this law was enacted in 1975, 60% of America's workers were under the cap and could get overtime pay for working beyond 40 hours a week. Guess what percentage of workers are entitled to overtime pay today? 7%. Now, in 2016, Obama raised the threshold from $23,000 a year to $47,000 a year. Now, in 2020, Trump was scheduled to raise that threshold to $51,000 a year. I'll let you guess as to whether that happened or not. So I know Trump has been telling people that there's this no tax on overtime pay, and it's something that the Republicans have really been touting, and they're trying to smash through in this horrible, big, bloated budget bill. But there's two things to know here. One, the current Senate version of the bill does not include a tax exemption for overtime pay. And two, the current federal threshold at which you are eligible to earn overtime pay for working beyond 40 hours a week. Remember, in 2016, under Obama, it was $47,476 a year. Think about how much the cost of living has gone up in the last 9 years. Think about how much more expensive everything is now. Think about inflation in the last 9 years. Under Trump in 2025, the current threshold is $35,568. So the limit is lower than under Obama. If you earn more than that, you are not entitled to overtime pay. So the number of people who actually would benefit from no tax on overtime pay is very small. And again, that's not even included in the current Senate version of the bill. Trump promises all kinds of things to get you to vote for him. And then, once he got your vote, he got in the White House, he doesn't give a shit about you. And let's get back to Trump's claim that Americans aren't working enough, that we have too many days off work. Set aside for a moment the fact that those days off work are not entitled to be paid days, right? Federal holidays, if you get them, your employer can say those are unpaid days off. Teachers, any holidays, unpaid days off. They're essentially a furlough. Are Americans just like chillaxing all the time? Are we a society where we don't work very hard and we get tons and tons of rest? Is that your experience as an American working class person in 2025? There was a study that came out earlier this month about the infinite workday in America. This study was one where Microsoft looked at the use of Microsoft 365 services, Outlook, PowerPoint, etc. And they said in their report, quote, "The infinite workday starts early, mostly in email, and quickly swells to a focus-sapping flood of messages, meetings, and interruptions. The company found that the average worker is interrupted every 2 minutes by a meeting, an email, or a chat notification during a standard 8-hour shift. And that those messages and interruptions and expectations of meetings, and that you should be giving your time and your skills and your mental capacity to work things doesn't end at the end of the workday." Microsoft said the typical worker receives 117 emails per day, and by 10 p.m., almost 1/3 of employees are back in their work inboxes. They said this points to a steady rise in after-hours activity. Americans are kind of infamous in other cultures for our workaholic sensibilities, the fact that we are go, 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 that we have a very poor concept of work-life balance, and that obviously private corporations, they want to get the most out of us that they can, and they do not in any way promote a healthy work-life balance at all, especially because they know if we're salaried and we're making above $35,000 a year, they don't have to give us overtime. They can set those expectations that we need to be putting in 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. The Microsoft study concluded that the modern workday for many has no clear-cut start or finish. According to a CNN piece about this study, one outcome is that 1/3 of workers feel it has been, quote, impossible to keep up with the pace of work over the last 5 years. Again, in the United States, you are not entitled to paid vacation. You're not entitled to days off. Most of us are not entitled to overtime pay, and don't forget that your health insurance is tied to your employment. So not only are bosses holding your job and your salary over your head in order to get you to give and give and give and sacrifice yourself to a corporation that has no loyalty to you, they're also holding your health insurance over your head. So Donald Trump thinks that Americans aren't working enough, that we need to work more hours, more days of the year. Meanwhile, the European Union mandates 4 weeks of paid vacation for every full-time worker. And many countries like France, Denmark, Germany, Sweden, Finland, and Norway offer 5 weeks minimum paid vacation. So you tell me, do you think Donald Trump's plans are making America great again? Do you think he's making life great for the working class? He thinks we should be working more days. We should be giving more of our life hours and our energy to the corporations. His idea of greatness is that billionaires get richer and richer and have more and more power over the rest of us. His idea of greatness does not extend to the hundreds of millions of working class Americans. His idea of greatness is how much more can he squeeze all of us so that these few guys at the top can get even more obscenely rich.